spending time down here in Mesquite Bay on this Madre shoreline. They're right off the left-hand side of Cedar Bayou as you approach Cedar Bayou. Great flat. Again, with all the extra water from the Hurricane Milton that passed through here a few days ago, we're still getting residuals from that, but the water level is gradually dropping back to a normal height each day that you go out. So probably later this week, if not already, the water level will be back to somewhat normal than what we have been. We've had some extremely high tides for a couple of weeks now, just because of the two different hurricanes that came through, and so it just kept us inundated with lots of water. So it's opened up a lot of water. So now it's starting to recede back a little bit more and more each day. So that's something you need to take in consideration as this upcoming fishing week approaches in the weekend. So make sure that you check your tide charts every morning before you hit the water. And that kind of helps you, if you understand them, it kind of helps you eliminate some areas that you, depending on your capability of your boat and what kind of fishing you're going to do, it helps you either eliminate water or add water or areas to your fishing area. So it's always a great little piece of information to have when you're starting your day, kind of get your game plan going in the right direction. So just remember that in the future, if you're not used to doing that, get in the habit of doing that, because it'll save you a lot of time to where you're going to fish for the day. But anyway, we've been spending time back here on this back shoreline, Matagorda shoreline, all the way up to Bray Cove area, all around here where the Texas Parks and Wildlife building is, back up in there. So this little shoreline back here can be really dynamite, because one thing you have to remember, the redfish, they're making their run going out to the Gulf, and we're finding little schools here and there bunched up heading out that direction or getting close to those directions like that. And if you have some that are coming back in, not necessarily bulls, but just the regular slot reds or undersized reds, these fish are going to go left or right down that shoreline. So this Matagorda shoreline and the Cedar Bayou shoreline, they're both great locations to hit and fish and spend time wading them, because the bottom on them, one side of it's a little more squishy than the other side's a little bit more firm than the other, but you just kind of, it's the give and take of the structure that's in the area. So, and that's the other thing too, we're in our, basically, not necessarily a transition month, but October typically is when we'll first get a decent cold front that'll push in, that will change things dramatically for us, how the fish eat, water temperatures will drop, and you'll notice that. I mean, we've been pretty much morning times, we've been 82 to 85, depending on where we're at, which is pretty normal for this time of year. Our ambient temperatures hanging out in that same area, 88, 85 to 88, may get up to touch 90 in some areas. But that's primarily where we're at, temperature-wise. So these fish have responded to that, and they've become a little bit more active, longer periods of the day. But there are those lulls during the process of your fishing day as well that will take place. Fish are going to feed and do so much. Remember, we are in our transition days, wild card days, as I like to call them, heading toward that full moon that's coming up here. Not too terribly far away, I would think. Probably another 5 to 6 days we'll be in that 10-day range that leads up to a full moon. But our fishing has been very good. Our catching's been pretty good. Primary baits that we've been using, again, the white ice and bone diamond have been our two primary flavors that we have used in any bait form. It doesn't matter who the maker is. Some type of white bait, whether it be a pearl, bone, ice, depending on what your water clarity is, we've really stuck with that, and it's continued to produce for us. Those fish are reacting to it. That's been of course, we've been in those wild card days, so we've been throwing a lot of burner shad down south in those two flavors. Twisted D a little bit, Big Papa a little bit, but mainly the white ice and bone diamond have been the two main flavors that have really done well for us. So whether you're throwing a Little John in their flavor of the white, whether you're throwing a Knock and Tail in their flavor, like the two different white ones that they have, Coastal Brew, any of those, Chad Puvla, any of his that he's got in a white flavor, that's been the main color. So make sure this upcoming week that you have a few flavors in white of some sort, some variation of that you have in your box, to make sure that you have an opportunity to catch and find you some fish. Now, our mornings have been pretty good. We've caught lots of trout that's been in that 14 to 18 size. We've caught lots of redfish that's been in the 18 to 26 size, and they've been all up and down the shoreline. So we've just found different little schools. We found individuals, we found doubles, singles, whatever, and just kind of located them. Once you kind of located those, and you kind of just squat down on top of those, because we find great potholes, great grass, and that's been the main structure until our weather really changes and starts getting more on the cooler side, water temp wise and air temp wise. Like I say, the fish have been very good for us. Main things that we've been really working on or been working around has been the majors. Have been good for us. The minors have been okay because they're in the midday time frame, so that's kind of when that lull takes place. So you really have to grind if you're going to fish that long, but just remember, keep that in mind. So, low light conditions have been good for us. Working those baits, continuing using a 16th ounce jig head, taking your time working out over these grass flats in those areas, just looking for the little signs, the little things that let you know that fish are hanging out there. Backside of Bud Island, all this back in here, up in the Kelly Lake area, this big back lake that's in here. Again, we've kind of taken advantage of that with a lot of water that's in our system. So when that's pushed in there like that, that allows you to cover more water, more areas. And there's a bunch of little back lakes that dump off of that in Mud Island back here. If you would fish that, either by wading it or by using your boat back in these, they're all good little areas. Typically one, if not one, you'll come across one that's going to hold some fish. Now, how much it holds, I don't know. You just have to fish it and see. But we've had periodic production out of each of these lakes during this high water period that we've had. We work all the way down here, that little cut through that's down here, work that little flat that's got the shell and everything that's on it, and you got another little back lake that's back down in here. Little fingers, little cuts, those little areas like that, you fish those. That's where you're going to, sometimes you will find some really quality fish in there. Will there be big numbers of them? Maybe, maybe not. That has not been the case for us. We haven't found big numbers, but we've found quality fish back in some of these areas. Primarily thing that we've been throwing, again, we've been throwing the down south in both the original and the burner shad size. Been throwing through a little bit of the supermodel and the big smooth, but not as much as we've thrown the original size. The knocking tails have been good for us in the flavors that I mentioned earlier, in the white ice and bone diamond or pearl. Any of those flavors have been good. And you just kind of have to pay attention to what your water clarity is and see what goes on with that. And then you just kind of match that. So if you got that dirtier water, put that more solid color on, like the pearl. Or if you got a little bit of cleanness to it, or maybe just stain, then that's where your translucent or even maybe the bone diamond will come in for you and work. You got this little area that's right about in here. You got a great little edge that works that. Great little flat that's all up in here that's been holding some fish for us. Not always have found fish in there, but during this time frame with all the extra water in there, we've located fish that's been up there on that flat. Then we working down this edge. Kind of wait for the water movement there. Get on top of that bar because it's a little, top of your belly deep in some of those spots trying to work that gut. So we'll just get up on top of that bar and work the edge of that gut and see if those fish hang off there in it, on the edge of that grass and all that stuff there. And then, of course, you can get out here on the point of mud. It's been okay. It hasn't been great for us, but we've had more success working the back lakes in those areas, and that's kind of what we've been focusing on. So if we were really spent time out there on the point of mud over the top of the grass and the potholes that are out there on that south end, more than likely we would have found a little bit more concentration of fish, but really focused more on the back lakes. And that's kind of really what we want when we have all this extra water. So as the thing, just maybe something to look for as the upcoming week occurs, you may want to look toward that outer edge out there because that water levels, again, it's dropping a little bit more each day. Each day it's dropped. So something to be aware of, how you have to change your tactic when that takes place. So if there's another disturbance that happens to us here in another 8 to 10 days, then that water level will come back and you can revert back to that. But that's kind of been our game plan. We've worked the outer edge out here, worked the guts, the fingers that are out there on some of the edges of this of mud. A little bit of the grass pattern that's out here on the top side, on this outside edge here. Fish are still holding there. Not the great numbers that we had back in June, July, and August, that there were really good numbers of fish that were hanging out there. Have kind of dropped off a little bit and started migrating more toward the softer stuff, the mud and the softer sandy areas, and hanging out over the grass and some clump shell. So just something to take in consideration when you're working in and around all of Mud Island. Again, majors and minors have been our main thing that we've really kind of focused on. It's been kind of stagnant in between that bite frame, and you'll have a little bit of a pickup, a small window in between there if you pay attention to it. But that's been our key focus, and that's been our areas that we've really had importance in production with around Mud Island. Back over here on the Port Bay side, all this shoreline in here. Again, when you see all these big tides that come in here from these hurricanes and stuff that we have, these lower or tropical depressions or anything like that out in the Gulf, we get an extra tidal surge from that. And depending on whether or not you are a high tide person or a really low tide person, if you like the concentration of fish, personally me, I like the more water in here because it opens more water up for me. Yes, it does scatter the fish, but once you kind of figure the pattern out, those fish are going to be in a particular area when that water levels are up. Depending on whatever you're going to fish, you will locate them if you continue just to pay attention to what they're telling you. Bait source, structure is a big deal. And those two things right there, bait and structure, as long as you have that in play, you're going to have an opportunity at some point in time. Now, will it happen fast? We don't know. We have to go fish it and figure it out. Do we always want it to happen fast? Absolutely, we want it to happen fast, but that's not realistic. So that there where you have to formulate your game plan, have realistic expectations about your fishing day and what you can honestly expect on how things flow. So if you're on the water on a not necessarily a daily basis, or if you're on the water 3 or 4 times a week, which is pretty good, that's a good amount of information that you'll gather from those trips. If you're paying attention to it, then you can start putting the puzzle together when that water levels are where they're at, and then you can revert back to when you get your normal water levels, even below water level, normal medium low level water, and then you can zero in them a little faster. So yes, it takes a little bit longer to locate your fish when you have higher tides or more water in the system, but you got more areas to fish, and that's what I like about it, because it really opens up lots of areas and it gives you more fishing areas. So you can put that into your game plan on different time frames based on what your tide report is. But we've been working this shoreline here. You've got a nice little edge there. You got a great little point here in Port Bay that runs you all the way back down to the 188 kayak launch down there. All that flat in there. This area here has opened up pretty well. It's got a decent amount of grass that's growing on it. It's got some decent little potholes. We've thrown some topwater baits in here and have had pretty good success with it. Some days have been better than others. You get the proverbial slaps or swirls like that, and that's where if you got multiple people with you, you can have somebody throwing pretty much working pairs if you've got that many people. If not, working threes or working twos, whatever. Throwing that topwater bait and somebody have a plastic with you, and y'all kind of pepper that area like that. And when somebody if you get a blow up, if not a take, you can throw in there right behind it. And more than likely, you're going to catch that fish. We had a little bit of double D action, not a lot. Used it just primarily in some of these areas because that water level being high it is, so you can work the water column a little better. But the primary thing, again, the down south and the bone and the white ice have been the main production thing. We've thrown Twisted Tea in there. We've thrown Firecracker in there. We've thrown Watermelon Red in there as well. Different flavors like that, but again, the primary colors that have been bone and white ice have been the main flavors. And Knock and Tail's the same thing. Mirror Lure's been the same thing. Coastal Brew's been the same thing. All those flavors that they've had in that have been the most productive. Now, we've caught them on other flavors, primarily in the 3-inch up to the 5-inch. Not as much production with the 5-inch for us, but we've had it more in the 4 and the 3. And that's kind of been the sweet spot that we've been productive with. So we've stuck with that, and it's paid off for us. So like I said, we've had some really good days on the water, catching a bunch of good slot size red in that 20 to 26 size, and the trout have been pretty nice as well in the 15 to 19 size. So it's been a productive week for us. Really fun, a lot of great opportunities to be out there and get to catch fish. So again, if you get the opportunity to be out there this upcoming week, pay attention to what your weather pattern is. Make sure you pay attention to start incorporating your tide reports into your fishing day before you start. And always, always, always make sure that the majors and minors are a part of your fishing day. So if you're out on the water this coming week, have a great time and be safe.